The courtroom hushed as Meri Brown entered. Flashbulbs popped like a light storm, and all eyes in the room followed her. Today wasn't just any ordinary day in the ongoing chronicle of the Browns. It was the day a secret betrayal would be unearthed. The atmosphere was charged like electricity before lightning, and whispers spread through the audience. "Did you hear what's arriving?" someone whispered from the back of the room. Mary's jaw was set, her hands trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the storm she was about to unleash. She had rehearsed every step of this moment for months. Every document, every photograph, every hidden text message had been carefully collected, and now the time for silence was over. The courtroom, a space usually filled with the monotonous hum of bureaucracy, felt electrified, as if it knew the drama about to unfold. Across the room, Kody Brown sat with his usual calm demeanor, or at least the version of calm he wanted everyone to believe. But Mary's eyes, sharp and unyielding, caught the slightest flicker of doubt in his expression. His confident mask wavered. For years he had managed to manipulate perception, but today, under the weight of Mary's resolve, even Kody couldn't hide completely. Robin Brown sat close by, her back rigid, a blend of interest and discomfort etched on her face. She had spent years being aware of the complexities of Kody's world, being a part of its delicate choreography, but this court case was different. Her hands were tightly bunched in her lap. What would this news do to her meticulously built position in the family? Christine Brown, seated just behind Meri, held her gaze on the floor, attempting to hide her expectation. Though she was frequently the peacemaker, the mediator, she could not help but acknowledge the tension that coursed in her chest. Every look Meri directed towards Kody seemed a silent challenge, a line in the sand that none of the Brown women could help but pay attention to. Christine's lips were pursed into a tight line, attempting to hold it together, but her fingers tapped lightly on her notebook, revealing her nervousness. Janelle Brown, the always most adventurous of the sisters, edged forward in her seat. Her gaze roamed the room, surveying the faces of everyone from family to strangers, attempting to guess which one would break first. She had long suspected cracks in the family dynamics, but having Meri here today, prepared to reveal them, made the air seem almost palpable with tension. Gwendolyn, only just starting to witness the internal struggles of the Brown family, sat in the corner, attempting to comprehend the turmoil of emotions in front of her. She wasn't experienced enough yet to read the coded looks and subtle movements of the adult Brown brothers, but she sensed the tension in the room, and even she could tell something extraordinary was going to happen. The judge swept in with a subdued authority, his robe rustling against the floor as he went to the bench. The whole courtroom stiffened automatically, the gravity of his presence anchoring the disorder in some semblance of order. "This case will come to order," he announced, his voice firm but with an undertone that indicated he had felt the tension in the air. Mary's lawyer, a meticulous and commanding figure, stepped forward holding a thick, unassuming folder. Yet everyone in the courtroom could feel its significance. The weight of months of preparation, of hidden truths, rested within its pages. His eyes met Mary's, a brief nod passing between them. She was ready. As the attorney placed the folder on the table, a silence fell, the kind of silence that makes a heartbeat sound deafening, that expands seconds into centuries. All the people in that courtroom, family, friends, strangers, even the court personnel were holding their breath. Cameras hummed softly in the background, recording every slight movement of an eye, every spasm of a finger. Kody shifted his suit around, attempting to regain composure, but tension in the room felt like a vice closing around him. He shot a look at Robin, who shot one back at him, unreadable before he looked at Janelle and Christine, whose eyes were locked, unblinking, on Meri. Every woman had her own past with him, her own trust broken in her own way, and now it all just hung suspended inside the courtroom like thunderheads waiting to burst. Even the crowd, a combination of reporters, fans and wonder-struck bystanders, sensed the tension build. Cameras slid quietly, capturing every possible angle. The subtle squinting of Kody's eyes, the faint clench of Mary's jaw, the hushed murmurs of the Brown women. You could swear you heard the tension unspoken, reverberating off the vaulted ceilings, each beat heightening the suspense. Mary's gaze shifted briefly to the gallery, locking on those who had doubted her over the years. Family friends who had whispered about her strength, critics who questioned her resilience. This moment was for them too. Today she wasn't just confronting Kody, she was confronting every lie, every secret, every moment of silence that had allowed betrayal to fester in the shadows. Christine leaned a little to one side in her chair, nodding subtly toward Meri. Janelle's stance eased by mere degrees, though her gaze never wavered from Kody. Robin felt the import of the moment, and attempted to stay professional but couldn't suppress the slight pursing of her lips. Even the most junior Brown clan members present felt the tension, sitting unnaturally quiet, their faces solemn far beyond their years. At last the judge's gavel fell once more, ending the silence but not the tension. "The case will continue," he declared. All eyes jerked forward. The time had come. Everyone in that room, Meri, Kody, Robin, Christine, Janelle, Gwendolyn, and all who watched knew that what came next could alter everything. The courtroom, once a place of order and protocol, had been transformed into a stage for revelation, suspense, and justice. Meri drew a deep breath, calming herself down, sensing her family and the world's eyes on her. Today, the secrets of the Brown family would no longer be kept in hushed tones. Today, the truth would be revealed, and the storm brewing for decades would finally unleash itself. The air was heavy, almost charged, as she opened her folder, the top sheet of evidence poised to be unveiled, and the audience leaned forward, holding their breath, aware that nothing in this courtroom would ever be the same again. Meri's lawyer rose slowly, the folder in his hands heavy with months of preparation. Every eye in the courtroom followed his movements, the tension palpable. He paused for a brief moment, letting the silence sink in. Then, with a deliberate motion, he slid the folder across the table toward the center, where Meri could reach it. "This," he explained, his voice firm but soothing, "holds secrets that were withheld from Meri Brown for years. Those made in secret, behind closed doors, which have directly impacted her family, her children, and her home." A whisper circulated around the courtroom. Kody's eyes tightened just a little. Robin's hands tightened around the rim of her chair. Janelle angled forward, feeling the weight of the moment. Even the press gallery and spectators had their breath held, realizing that they were on the verge of something extraordinary. Meri unfolded the folder slowly, her fingers sweeping over the rims of neatly ordered documents. Slowly but surely, she exposed photos of houses she never realized were connected to Kody's choices, spreadsheets revealing secret accounts, and messages which revealed lies to keep her in the dark. Each page turned was akin to an explosion in the courtroom. Gasped murmurs echoed softly, whispers increased, and even the judge hesitated, drinking in the gravity of what was being uncovered. The first letter outlined financial choices Kody had made without consulting Meri, including investments in real estate and businesses she was unaware of. The crowd could sense the tension rising. This wasn't about cash alone. It was about trust, control, and subtle manipulation that had quietly undermined the foundation of the Brown family. Robin's eyes flicked toward Kody, her expression unreadable, while Janelle's gaze never wavered. Christine shifted slightly, a mixture of sympathy and anger crossing her face. Meri's hands were steady now, her fingers tracing the edges of the documents as she prepared to unveil the most damning evidence. Then there were the text messages, strings of infidelity, conversations tactfully covered up, texts indicating that plans for the family's future had been drawn up without her. Every discovery was greeted with sounds, gasps here, whispers there. The tension was mounting, the suspense almost too much to bear. Finally, the most shocking evidence, a secretly recorded conversation. Meri's lawyer held it up, letting the courtroom absorb the gravity of what they were about to hear. "This recording," he said, "will reveal the true extent of the deception." The courtroom was quiet once more, heavy hush that allowed each heartbeat to ring out. Meri clicked play. The voices on the tape were unmistakable. Kody deciding, shutting her out, talking about things that should have included her in their entirety. Each statement was a blade, and the air in the courtroom charged to almost intolerable levels. Mary's eyes never left the folder, but the room could feel her silent fury. This wasn't just about betrayal. It was about power, secrecy, and the deliberate undermining of a family member who had trusted everything to the wrong hands. The suspense was electric. Even the judge leaned forward, listening intently, absorbing every detail. Kody's calm started to break. A single bead of sweat rolled down the temple. Robin's stance grew rigid, her eyes shifting between Meri and Kody, weighing wary. Janelle's lips set into a hard line, observing Kody's response intently. Christine's fists closed in her lap, the tension etched on her face. Even Gwendolyn, younger and less practiced, sensed the seriousness of the moment. The whispered deceptions, the concealed truths, all laid bare before the whole courtroom. Mary's voice finally interrupted the hush. "I trusted that you would bring me into our family's deliberations," she stated, her voice even but incisive. "I trusted that that which was to be shared would be shared, and yet all of this was kept from me." The words hung in the courtroom. Everyone there felt the heaviness, the duplicity, the tension. The tale was far from told. Her attorney, noticing the swelling tension, leaned forward. "Your Honor, this last bit of evidence illustrates the deliberate nature of this deception. It is clear, willful, and continuous." He nodded slightly to Meri, who took a deep breath. The room poised, waiting for the tempest to reach its height. Each individual in that room now knew. This was not merely a disagreement about decisions. It was a skillfully concealed betrayal, uncovered before the world. And the tension, thick, electric, unrelenting, was only going to intensify from here. The courtroom constricted around Meri. As the tape played, each sentence a sledgehammer against the pillars of trust she had accumulated over years. Each of the Brown family members suspended their breaths, trapped between shock, incredulity, and expectation. The air was so charged with tension, it was nearly tangible. Meri stood, shivering a little, but her eyes never left Kody. His typical calm facade had disappeared, replaced by a flash of fear, of guilt that he could no longer conceal. Robin sat stiff, observing the tableau with a mixture of surprise and calculation. Christine fidgeted in her seat, biting her lip, as if preparing herself for the emotional tempest that was brewing. Janelle's eyes were wide with anticipation, fists clenched, leaning forward. Even Gwendolyn's innocent face registered a confusion and a wonder. The kind of intensity you experience when you know history is being made before you. Mary's voice came through above the silence, quiet but firm at first, gradually rising in passion and misery. "I trusted you," she told him, her tone razor sharp. "I trusted you to join me in our family's life, in our children's lives, and you lied." A murmur of shock passed through the courtroom, and cameras zoomed in on her tear-stained face. But it was not weakness. Every sob was a testament of bravery, every tremble in her voice, a testament of fortitude. Her eyes shone with both anger and sorrow, piercing Kody with the impact of her pain. Kody's hands clenched on the edge of the table. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. The evidence, the recording, and Mary's unshakable presence had left him momentarily speechless. Robin's eyes darted toward him, silently measuring his reactions. Christine shook her head slowly, a mixture of disbelief and pity crossing her face. Janelle's jaw tightened, the tension in her body, echoing the audience's own suspense. Meri went on, her voice growing higher now to echo throughout the courtroom. "You expected me not to find out. You expected me not to struggle. But I'm here. And the reality can no longer be concealed." The judge leaned forward, clearly shaken. He looked from the papers, the tape, and to Meri herself. "Miss Brown, your bravery in bringing this to light is to be admired," he said softly, nearly a whisper, as if he were nodding to the magnitude of personal stakes involved. And then came the moment that left the courtroom holding its breath. The live responses of the family. Robin's eyes flashed with fear and realization as she could feel the balance of power shifting. Christine's expression was one of awe and pity for Meri. Janelle's fists relaxed minutely, but she never took her eyes off Kody, defying him to react. Even Kody, usually so composed, could no longer conceal the fissure in his expression. The tension was palpable, Each of the audience members would sense it in their ribcage, each second pulling with suspense. Mary's gaze softened briefly as she glanced toward her children, who sat quietly in the gallery. Their eyes met hers, wide and anxious, and she drew strength from them. "I am doing this for them," she said, her voice breaking just slightly, "so they never see deceit go unchallenged. So they never doubt that standing up for truth matters." The courtroom broke into whispers. All the reporters, all the cameramen, all the spectators hung on her words. Her words were not just an argument, they were a declaration of strength, courage, and unshakable moral fiber. Kody broke into speech, his deep, shaky voice attempting to rebuild composure. "Meri," but she interrupted him, her hand staying slightly up, not in anger, but firmly. "No, not today. Today you listen. Today the lies stop." Robin shifted in her seat uncomfortably, sensing the full weight of Mary's fury. Christine's fingers drummed nervously against her notepad, the suspense in the room mounting with every passing moment. Janelle's eyes narrowed, her lips pressed into a thin line. Even Gwendolyn leaned forward, captivated by the intensity of the confrontation. The tape kept running in the background, every word underscoring deception and manipulation. But now, the emotional bets had surpassed the technical proofs. This was no longer about documents or tape. It was about human deceit, about faith betrayed, and the guts to face it. Mary's voice rose once more, a blend of anger and raw grief. "I will not be silenced. I will not be manipulated. And I will never cease to fight for the truth. For myself, for my children, and for all those who have been damaged by deception." The courtroom seemed frozen. Even the judge's hand hesitated mid-air, the gavel momentarily forgotten. The suspense was almost unbearable. Every person in that room, every viewer at home, felt the emotional earthquake of the moment. Cameras focused on Mary's determined face, Kody's faltering composure, and the silent, tense reactions of the Brown women, capturing a perfect storm of suspense and drama. As Meri breathed deeply, calming herself, the courtroom seemed to be holding its breath. The turbulence had not yet been weathered. The next few minutes would determine not just the outcome of the case, but the very balance of trust and control in the Brown family. And with that, the drama was at its height, with everyone, both within the room and viewing in the home, sitting on the edge of their seat, anticipating the next fact, which had the potential to turn everything around. The courtroom was so quiet, it seemed to be holding its breath. All the eyes were on Meri Brown, and all the heartbeats rang through the high ceiling. Even the judge, normally calm and uninvolved, leaned forward, as if the tension had a power of its own. Kody sat immobile, his confidence utterly shattered. The dam of his self-control had burst the moment the last recording was revealed, leaving him vulnerable in front of the world and his family. Robin, ever the self-assured one, shifted uncomfortably, feeling the power dynamics shift. Janelle leaned in, her eyes keen, calculating, on guard for the next step. Christine's face was a blend of awe and incredulity, while Gwendolyn's wide eyes shone like a youngster enthralled by a tempest unfolding. Mary's attorney cleared his throat, shattering the strained silence. "Your Honor," he stated slowly, enunciating each word, "there is one final piece of evidence we need to present. It is the strongest evidence of the premeditated deceit that has occurred. This will show the total extent of the betrayal." Gasps were heard softly throughout the courtroom. The audience leaned forward. Each whisper made suspense greater. Cameras zoomed in on the folder as it was opened, showing papers that no one in the room had ever laid eyes on. Contracts, secret financial statements, and letters that directly contradicted what Kody had previously testified to. Meri stood up a little from her chair, her face peaceful yet determined to kill. "This is not simply about the past," she said, her words firm but resolute. "This is about accountability. This is about truth." The judge studied the papers intently. Even he appeared stunned, holding his breath to take in the magnitude of the discoveries. Each gesture was measured, calculated, and full of suspense, a notion that somehow time had been put on hold. Then came the coup de grace that made the courtroom collectively catch its breath. The last revelation. A single document, painstakingly highlighted, revealed that Kody had secretly tried to control not just family finances, but also the allocation of family property, all unbeknownst to Meri. The news was staggering. Gasps and whispers filled the courtroom. Even the judge's normally gruff demeanor softened, revealing the humanity of the deception before him. Kody blanched and shifted in his seat. Robin's mouth compressed, her hands clenching in her lap. Christine's fingers shook subtly, and Janelle's jaw locked. Even taciturn Gwendolyn felt the severity of the moment. The betrayal went deeper than anyone could have imagined. Meri's voice sliced through the tension like a knife. "This was intentional," she said, indicating the papers. "Each move, each choice, kept from me. You assumed that I would not notice. You assumed that the truth could be buried. But it cannot." The courtroom was mesmerized. Even the reporters, schooled in observing without commenting, leaned forward, mesmerized by the drama. Each response, each look, each change in demeanor, spoke volumes of shock, tension, and incredulity. The tension built to a peak as the judge finally broke his silence, his voice measured and heavy with weight. "The testimony here is serious. The manipulation and deceit uncovered in this courtroom are not trivial mistakes. They are a violation of trust and openness within this family." The room seemed to hold its collective breath. Meri's heart pounded, but her face remained composed. She knew the final verdict was near, yet she also understood that this moment, this peak of suspense, would define how everyone remembered her strength, her courage, and the power of truth. Kody swallowed hard, aware the room had been altered. The balance of power had swung. The audience sensed it, felt it, almost tasted it in the air. The tension was electric, stifling, and impossible to ignore. Meri's lawyer turned to her, giving a subtle nod. She took a deep breath, ready for the final confrontation. Her eyes met Kody's, unflinching, filled with a mixture of anger and resolve. The next moments would seal the outcome, but the suspense, the anticipation, the tension, the emotional stakes, had reached its peak. Each individual in that courtroom, each viewer at home viewing the drama play out, was on pins and needles. The courtroom had evolved beyond a venue of justice. It had become a stage upon which truth and lies and human feeling crashed into each other. And everyone was left to ask, what's going to happen next? The courtroom hung in the balance, each motion calculated, each look heavy with intent. And in that silence, in that charged stillness, one thing was certain. The tale was far from finished, but the suspense, the heart-stopping, edge-of-the-seat suspense, had come to a place that would have viewers holding their breath, waiting for the ending that might alter everything. The courtroom was charged with tension. Each individual there appeared to be held transfixed in expectation, as the judge announced he would render the verdict. Meri Brown stood tall, hands clasped around the table edge, gaze fixed intently on Kody. It was the culmination of months of planning, sleepless nights, and the strain of secret betrayals. The judge coughed. Upon reading the evidence, the testimonies and the recordings submitted, this court rules in favor of Meri Brown. The room exploded in a combination of gasps, whispers, and murmurs. Cameras flashed wildly, taking in every response. Meri experienced a rush of relief, yet also the weight of the victory she had struggled so long to win. This wasn't a legal victory at all. It was a personal triumph over years of manipulation and lies. Kody's expression dropped. The confidence mask he had worn for so long disappeared, replaced by shock, guilt, and a tinge of remorse. Robin sat quietly, her face impassive, as she considered the consequences of the verdict. Janelle's eyes softened slightly, a combination of respect and vindication in her gaze. Christine released a soft, barely perceptible sigh, relief and pride combined on her face. Even Gwendolyn, though she was young, knew the gravity of what had occurred, and gazed at Meri in awe and admiration. Meri permitted herself a fleeting moment of feeling. Tears poured down her face, yet there was also a victorious grin. She had met betrayal head-on, overcome deception, and emerged more powerful than ever before. Her children, quietly sitting in the gallery, looked at each other with looks of pride and relief. This win was not for her. It was for them, for their future. and for the principle that integrity and truth could never be concealed forever. As she packed up her folder and headed out of the courtroom, cameras trailed her every step. Shouts of questions, light flashes in her eyes. But Meri strode ahead, with head held high, calm and dignified. She had shown the world that courage and determination could overcome even the most cunning dishonesty. The court gradually settled back into its routine, but the mood still lingered. Witnesses, reporters, and relatives alike departed with a feeling of wonder at what they had just seen. A tale of betrayal, suspense, and final acquittal. The tension of the day was dissipated, but the effects still lingered. Outside, sunlight reflected off the face of Meri as she emerged from the courthouse. Cameras followed her every step, but she was intent not on the media frenzy, but on the freedom and acceptance she had won. The tempest of lies and manipulation, which had threatened to destroy her life, had at last passed by. On this day, justice had been done, and Meri had come out stronger, smarter, and unbreakable. For the home audience, the narrative was one that they would never forget. The tension, the dramatic exposes, the tearful confrontations, and the final victory had created a tale to remember. It was not merely a victory in the courtroom. It was a victory for courage, integrity, and standing up for what was right. As Meri departed, cameras still running, the one thing that remained for viewers was no matter how great the betrayal, how deep the deception, courage and determination can shift the tide and reveal the truth in the strongest way possible.